Did you start it?
Yeah, it's going. Say hello to everybody. You're on. You're live.
Who do you see logged in already?
You're broadcasting live right now.
Did you see anybody log in yet?
I don't know how to get out of that.
Click on enter room. Oh, that's what came up, the drop down menu?
I made it come up. Say hello to everybody. You're live.
I want to say hello to everybody that has dialed in today. We are making sure that we can see your chats. Bring that, yeah, look.
Microphone, voice. Show participants.
Okay. What's to the right?
Wednesday, January 7th.
Today, yeah.
There we go.
Okay. All right, look under room, second one on the right. I think that's where it's going to show who's dialed in. That's all three of us. So far, it doesn't show anyone dialed in.
8 total registered. Okay, we've got 3 attendings.
Okay. All right. Looks like we are ready to roll on our end.
Okay.
Shows that we have some folks who have dialed in. And I sent all you distant folks, I sent you an email to let you know that the binders that you're waiting for were mailed out yesterday, I believe it was. So hopefully you've seen your handout or your email to go and copy the handout for today. So I just want to, what was it I was going to tell them?
Oh, nothing. Yeah.
Okay. I just want to remind folks that have dialed in, excuse me, that we have a new system here at our Sacramento campus that we are using for the workshops, and the system still has a few bugs in it. So we're working it out. So if you are dialing in but you are not seeing the PowerPoint slides, I just want you to know that we're watching that too. And every once in a while, our projector either turns off or it drops the slide. So John will be working to bring that back up so that you can see it when it happens. So we're aware of it. Don't take off for the refrigerator. Just hang tight and we'll get the slide back up for you. Today we're actually going to be working in a little bit different way than we did last week. We will take a couple minutes here at the beginning to run through each page in this handout, and then we'll go back to the beginning and start over and work through the handout. We're going to take a look at it real quick just so you can know what all of the different pages and bits of information are about and how they will apply once we start working through the handout. So it is a little bit more working through the handout today than last time. And I want you to know that I don't anticipate that you will finish everything in this handout today, but hopefully through the week, continue to work on it. Last week, we identified that last page in your handout. I'm sorry, I just need to stop here and clear my throat. Thanks. I identified that if you spend about an hour a day working on your job search, part of it is to take an hour or so to work on the information from each workshop. And so that could be your hour this week, is to continue to work through the pages that we're going to look at. So we are going to start right now on page 1. And up at the top that you'll see, it says accomplishments and work successes. And that's what we're going to talk about today, is taking time to think about accomplishments and work successes that you have had through your previous work experience. And again, I just want to stress that for the most part, students at OSC are career changers. You have some amount of years, a few to many, many years of work experience behind you, and now you're changing the direction of your working career. So I just like to really point that out, because sometimes people can feel like if they're starting over. And that, while that may be true as far as your career is concerned, you have lots and lots of experiences from your past that you will bring to your future employers. So as career changers, taking time to think about your accomplishments and previous work success that you have is what is going to help you sell yourself to your next employer, and in a way that is beyond an entry-level type of situation. And so the things that we're going to work through today are great topics that you can build your stories and examples from. So right now I'd like to take us through each page in this handout, and then we will come back and go through each page. I want to show you each page before we get started so that you can see how the different pages of information can be used today and how they weave in and out with each other. So page 1, in a few minutes we're going to come back and take a look at some information listed in those 5 bulleted points there that will help you to establish a perspective from which to draw some of the information. On page 2 and 3, there are 19 questions that we're going to take 2 or 3 minutes for each question and have you just make a note of whatever it is quickly that comes to your mind. To develop more information to answer these questions on these 2 pages is something that you can take time to do later on in the week. If you'll turn with me to page 4, you'll see that this is a list of strengths that you can use for information to put on your resume, to use in cover letters, and especially to use in interviews. And this list of strengths, as you review through them, you'll identify things about yourself from your past work experience that you can draw from this list, and this is a place that you can begin to use to develop your stories and your examples. Page 5, this page is titled Transferable Skills. We'll talk about transferable skills, what they are, and how to use them in an interviewing situation, and how to use them on your resume. And then page 6, 7, and 8 go together. Well, 6 and 7 in particular right now. Page 6 is a resume of Joe somebody who lives on some street anywhere in California. And page 7 is a job description. And we're going to take a few minutes to talk about transferable skills, how to identify them in yourself and use them when you are reviewing job descriptions. Because transferable skills are not always the skills necessarily that were your technical skills that you've used, but skills that you use in any sort of work. Page 8 is a list of transferable skills that you can refer to. Down at the bottom of page 8, there's some blank spaces for you to write in some transferable skills that you identify in yourself that may not necessarily be on this list. And then if you'll notice at the bottom of page 8, it asks you to circle your top 3 transferable skills that you would want an employer to know about you. And so while that may vary and should vary from job to job that you apply for and interview for, each of us has some types of transferable skills that no matter what kind of work we're doing, these skills are going to show up because they're just inherent. They're a part of who you are. Page 9 is titled The Features and Benefits of You. This is a page that once you develop some information that are features of you, which are oftentimes your transferable skills, we'll talk about how you will portray yourself by being able to tell a potential employer the benefit. You have this feature to offer them and what the benefit to them will be. Pages 10 and 11 probably look a little familiar, right? This is just another place for you to be able to develop your stories and your examples by using the PAR format. So once we work through some of what we're going to work on today, this is just another spot for you to continue to write out your stories. And then if you look at page 12, which is the last page in this handout, you see at the top it says professional profile. This is a place for you to begin to keep track of what we're going to talk about today, your strengths, talking about achievements that you've had, talk about soft skills, transferable skills. So I would encourage you that once you start working on this sheet, you can add more papers into your notebook and just continue to write out these things as they come to your mind. It's a great way to prepare to be able to talk about your examples and stories in your interview when you begin to read job descriptions and you think, all right, what can I tell about myself doing that? Remember, we talked last week about we just have our words in an interviewing situation. We just have our words to use to paint a picture of us doing the work that we're telling about. All right, let's go back to page 1. In the middle of the page, you see says use this worksheet to help you look at your previous work and see your accomplishments. That's referring to the sheet we're going to use next. As you use this worksheet, keep in mind the following things. So here we are, experience. There we go. Okay. Again, as career changers, this is what I really would like you to keep in mind about yourselves, that you are a career changer. So think back to previous experiences you've had in your previous employment. So number 1 says to try to list accomplishments that are specific and measurable. All right. And you'll see what I mean by that when we start working on this next page. But you want to be able to talk about why that was an accomplishment, what was important about it, what you gained, what you were able to offer your employer as a result of an effort that you did, or maybe the result of some teamwork that you were involved in. Number 2 says quantify whenever possible. What can you tell? Did something that you do increase sales by 50% over the previous year? Did you supervise a staff? Sometimes people will say, you know, supervised staff. Maybe that's as much as they put, but then you find out like they supervised 50 people. That's different than supervising 2 people, right? Or not supervising anyone at all. Okay, so that's what we mean by making it quantifiable. Quantify whenever you can. Add that little extra detail. I was working with someone a few weeks ago in the Stockton school, and they were talking about that they had helped reduce turnover at a previous job, and that's all he said about it. So as we continue talking about that, he reduced the turnover from 90%. When he was a new employee at this job, they had 90% turnover. I mean, they had people leaving and new people being hired like every 2 or 3 weeks into the same job. It was crazy. And so he reduced the turnover from 90% down to 10%. And so now we're talking about accomplishments. So how did you do that? What kind of a trainer were you? What sort of techniques did you use? And so that's where he really began to be able to develop his story, his example that he had to share. When we get to this next couple pages we're going to work on, I want you to think about using superlatives and first. Use words, if this applies to you in your descriptions, use words like first and only and best and most and highest. Don't be afraid to kind of brag about yourself a little bit. You know, we call that tooting your own horn, right? Because not going to be anybody behind you. No little horn tutor sitting on your shoulder in an interview, right? So even though it can feel uncomfortable, or you could feel like you're bragging a little bit, you have to do it. But the beauty of it is that when we work on these next 2 pages and you have a chance to think about some of these things, then you have a chance to put your words together in a way that don't make you feel like, oh, I can't say it that way. I feel like I would be bragging. All right, number 4. For every accomplishment that you list, ask yourself this question. So what? What does it mean that I did that? Does that sound a little rough? Say, so what? But again, that'll be how you form your answer. So what that I did that? How did it benefit other people? How did it help make me advance in my previous work? And last here, number 5 says, make sure each accomplishment is relevant to the type of job you're seeking. So we all have different accomplishments from different work that we've done, but we really want to take a little bit of time to think about how an accomplishment that we have in our background will relate to the job that we're about to interview for. One thing that I want to mention before we move on here, and keep this in mind when we go to work on the next 2 pages, as well as when you work on your resume and we get ready to work on interviewing. There's a very popular interview style these days called interviewing the resume. And you know where this shows up sometimes? In a phone call. This is starting to become popular too. You'll receive a phone call and they want to have kind of a mini, like maybe a 20 or 30-minute interview with you over the phone. Then they decide whether they'll have you come and meet at the company. So typically this is a person from the Human Resources Department, and they screen for the human resources side of things to just see how you get through talking about your previous work experience. And then if they feel like, oh, that's a pretty good fit, then they bring you in to meet with a technical person, the person that might be your manager or someone that can ask you job-related types of questions. So this interviewing the resume, they'll just start off, they have a copy of your resume in front of them, and it's really good that you always have your copy of your resume in front of you when you're on the phone too, because believe it or not, sometimes until we really review our resume, we really don't, it hasn't really sunk in what we've written on it. So it is good to study your resume and be ready to talk about, they'll ask you things, they'll look at one previous job that you've had and they'll say, tell about an accomplishment that you had in that role. That's really open-ended, isn't it? It could be anything that you could think of from that previous employer. They may take your next job and say, tell about a challenge that you had in that job. How did you handle it and what was the outcome? And again, that's kind of that PAR format, right? Problem, situation, or challenge, action that you took, and then the result. So as we move on to this next page, tell me, just remind me, this is for having a little problem with this mouse here. All right. I just want to stop here for a second for anybody that's dialed in or in the room here. If you are a veteran, this is an excellent website to go to. that will take your military work experience and translate it into civilian work experience. So you'll see here the web address to go to ebenefits.va.gov/ebenefits/jobs. It's a great website. It will ask for your service, for your branch of service that you were in, and your rank. And then oftentimes, as I've been looking through this website, I see that there may be 2 or 3 options of the type of work that you did according to that rank, and then you select which is specific to you, and then it will take you to the translator. All right, if you'll turn the page now to page 2 and 3, this is what we're going to work on, and here's how we're going to do it. I'm just going to take a moment to work through each of these questions, and then I'll not talk for a minute or so while you fill some information in on this line that's provided here. And this is sort of like the gut instinct sort of thing. Don't think too long and hard about it. When we read the question, whatever comes to your mind first, just make a note to yourself. Unfortunately, we don't have time to write out a paragraph about it, but sort of keep the PAR format in mind and just make that instinctual note. Okay, so question number 1 says, in this job, so this could be any job from your previous work experience, in this job, what special things did you do to set yourself apart? How did you do the job better than anyone else did or than anyone else could have done? So just take a moment and think about a job, what pops into your mind. Make a note to yourself about which job it was, and then maybe 2 or 3 or 4 words about what you would want to talk about. Okay, question number 2. What did you do to make this job your own? How did you take the initiative? How did you go above and beyond what was asked of you in your job description?
They're able to chat, but they're not able to see or hear anything.
Question number 3. What special things did you do to impress your boss so that you might be promoted?
No visual, no audio.
Number 4. And were you promoted? Promoted. Rapid and or frequent promotions can be especially noteworthy. Definitely want to capture those on your resume if that was the case.
So it's this.
Number 5, how has the organization benefited from your performance? How will you leave this employer better off than before you worked there?
Hold on a second, she's moving her mouse.
Okay, question number 6, list any awards you won, such as Employee of the Month, President's Club, any sort of Maybe like a financial bonus that you received, an employee bonus based on a project or something that you completed. Number 7, what are you the most proud of in this job? That's a great interview the resume over the telephone question. They look at one of your jobs and then they ask you that. So what pops into your mind? Just make a note of what job it was and something that you were very proud of. Number 8, check your annual performance reviews for this job. Provide below any glowing or even complimentary quotes from your reviews. Did you consistently receive high ratings? You know, sometimes in a job when you've been there 2 or 3 years and you've had 2 or 3 reviews, and you know, if they're rating things on a scale of say 1 to 5 or 1 to 3 and you're receiving marks at the top of that scale, that's a great thing to put on your resume. Consistently received highest ratings or high ratings. You could list out what some of the things were for annual performance reviews. Because if you did that in the past, then this potential employer is going to be able to realize that's probably the same type of worker that they'll be if they work for me. Number 9, have you received any complimentary memos or letters from employers or customers? And I want to say it could even be coworkers too. Provide below quotes from these letters that support your accomplishments. Question number 10, what tangible evidence do you have of accomplishments? Publications you've produced, products you've developed, software applications you've written. Like, how come somebody didn't tell me this when I was 20 and starting off in my working career, right? Keep those things. But now's a good time to start. You know, start a file folder, keep track of things that are those tangible evidence of accomplishments that you've had in a job. Have you ever been written up in the company newsletter? Something like that. Do you have a copy of that if you have? Question number 11, how did you contribute to this employer's profitability, such as through sales increase percentages? How have you helped your employer to make money? Sometimes in jobs, people think of ways that we think of saving money, and in essence, however, that is helping your employer to make money. Question number 12, how did you contribute to operational efficiency in this job, such as through cost reduction percentages? How did you help the employer or a part of the organization to save money, save time, or make work easier? Can you think of something from previous employment that you had an idea for, and in the end, it helped to make something in your work easier for yourself, for a group, for customers? Question number 13, how did you contribute to productivity, such as through successfully motivating your team? Question number 14, how did you help make your company more competitive? Question number 15, how did you build relationships with internal and/or external customers? How did you attract new customers or retain existing ones? And I just want to throw out here too that, our co-workers, really, we should consider those internal customers, let alone a supervisor, manager, the owner of the company, but also our coworkers. So let's just think of coworkers in this one. How did you build relationships with coworkers? Question number 16, how did you help expand the business? Question number 17, how did you help the organization fulfill its mission statement? Yesterday we went over these questions in Stockton. We had quite a bit of conversation about companies and mission statements. So we know that's a very popular thing in this day and age for a company to have a mission statement. And a lot of times those mission statements seem to change every year. But I just want to recommend that when you're preparing, in particular, to write a cover letter and go to an interview, it's really valuable to study the mission statement of the company. You're going to do a little company research by going to their website and learning what you can, but really take time to look at their mission statement and identify a statement or two or a part of a statement that really resonates with you because you share that same thought or that same ideal, so that you can include that in your letter or in your interview. Work it in. Again, that's the beauty of being prepared and practicing. And also, companies are really, really interested to know that you want to work for them. Not that you just want to have a job they have available, but that you want to be an employee with them.
How can you tell it's specifically a mission statement if it's on their job description and they don't have access? You can't tell which company it is. Would it just be that it's not on there, or would it be on their website?
Okay, we have a question here in Sacramento, and the question, I'll just repeat the question, is about how can you tell their mission statement. I think you're saying if it's a posting, but you don't know who the company is, right? So you kind of don't have a way to do that. But when you do know who the company is, then go to their website. And a lot of times, their mission statement most often will be found either on their homepage or in a section that's either says, about them or about the company. You can also scroll to the bottom of their homepage, and maybe they have a listing down there that you can click on that will then pull up their mission statement. Did that answer everything, or is there one more part to your question? Okay. So yeah, a little bit tough when you're applying to a posting that doesn't give any information about who that company is. But the other thing to remember is that once you are contacted for an interview, then they'll tell you who the company is, and then you can scurry. Hopefully there's enough time to comfortably go and check out their website and gather all the information that you want to. Question number 18. Good question, Caitlin. Thank you. Question number 18. If you had to be the writer of a letter of recommendation about you from your boss, what would it say? I think that's kind of a fun question. So even when you consider this concept of interview the resume, getting that phone call, if you had to write that letter about you from your boss at that job, each job you've had, what do you think your previous boss would say? And then question number 19. How did you solve one or more specific problems in this job? So think of a job that you had. There was some sort of a problem or a situation or a challenge. What was it? PAR. What was your action? And what was the result? All right, let's turn to page 4 and take a look for a minute or so at this list of strengths that you can use on a resume, on your cover letter, and in interviews. And again, this is an opportunity to use that PAR approach. So now I know this is a really tiny slide, but it's just a replica of what you have on page 4 of your handout. And I just want to give you about a minute here with pen or pencil, whatever you are using, to just kind of scan the columns of this list and just put a little mark next to maybe like 3 or 4 strengths that pop out that you feel represent you. I'll tell you one that always kind of strikes me on this list. It's in the middle column, and down in the middle of that column, identify wasteful expenditures. I actually worked a few years ago with someone who that was kind of a real big interest that they had. And so they always had their eye out for things that were really wasteful ways that things were done, materials that were used in wasteful ways or weren't needed. They were very often submitting suggestions for improvement. And they were real popular for doing that. They were kind of counted on for doing that sort of thing. Caitlin, will you share one that you picked?
Well, definitely attention to detail.
Okay.
And because I look at each detail and see how it fits together in a whole.
Okay.
And I'm going to make sure that each of the details actually work in what I'm working on, creating solutions, etc.
Okay. So Caitlin here in our Sacramento room picked attention to detail and explained how she will look at each detail along the way to make sure that it all fits together. I like the idea of that. Reminds me of the 7 habits of highly effective people. And habit number 2, begin with the end in mind. When you want to get to the end of something you're working on, it's most effective to decide in the end, what do I want this to look like? How do I want this to function? How do I want this to work out? And then go back and identify all the details, all the steps that you're going to take in order for that outcome. Steve, will you mention one?
You establish standards and processes which enhance quality.
Okay.
That was basically my whole job.
Okay. Steve just told us that he summed up a job that he's had in the past, and that was to what? Establish standards and processes which enhance quality. And so that's probably an example of a transferable strength for you too. No matter what sort of work you're ever involved in the past and into your future, you'll always be looking for ways to establish processes that'll make things run more smoothly, right? Yep. All right. Now we're on to page 5, and you see that's titled Transferable Skills. So first, let's define what a transferable skill is so that you have that in the back of your mind as we work on an exercise that we're going to do here. So transferable skills are skills or characteristics about you that no matter what kind of work you do will be of value to most any employer. We take our transferable skills with us. So if you could think of like this backpack we have on with transferable skills in there. They transfer from one job to another, from one occupation to another, because they are a part of who you are. So now it's going to be a little bit tricky, but we're going to work on pages 5, 6, and 7 all together. We're going to do an exercise here. If you'd like to do this exercise, actually do some writing, you can use this chart on page 5, but if you'll turn with me to pages 6 and 7, on the left is a resume and on the right is an actual job description. This was a job working at Sherwin-Williams paint store. And what we want to do is take the first few points in the job description and look through Joe Somebody's resume and identify transferable skills. So Joe Somebody has never worked at a paint store before, never worked with paint, but he has lots of transferable skills that he can talk about if he's ready and practiced and prepared to do it, that will answer these different activities that are requested in this job description. So let's look at the first one here. This position is responsible for assisting customers in person and over the phone by determining needs and presenting appropriate products and services. So keep that first bulleted statement in mind and look over to Joe Somebody's resume and look through it real quick and see a transferable skill where he's done something similar in the past that he could use as a story or an example to support his ability to respond to this first statement on this job description. So what do you see? I'll give you a little hint about one of them. There's actually a couple. It's under assistant photographer.
It's the served clients by listening to their ideas and set expectations by showing portfolio work.
Right. So in previous work as an assistant photographer, he served clients by listening to their ideas and helped set expectations by showing portfolio of work. All right, let's look at the second bulleted point on the job description. It says this involves ensuring that sales transactions are completed accurately, maintaining accurate work order files and formulas, pulling appropriate products from the sales floor or warehouse, and tinting and mixing them to customer specifications. So looking back at the resume, what transferable skill do you see that he has in his past work experience that will help him fulfill this requirement? Because it's easy to look at a job description and say, oh, I've never done that. I didn't do that. I don't have that experience. But when we stop to think about what we have done and ask ourselves the question, instead of saying, oh, I haven't done that, saying, how might I have fulfilled that in my past work? So for the second bulleted point, a hint is under his job titled team member. Where do you see some relationship? How about under greeted customers, took accurate orders? That's a way to talk about maintaining accurate work order files, took accurate orders, prepared items as requested. The third bulleted point on the job description says this position will also stock shelves and set up displays, clean store equipment, and load and unload trucks. It may also assist in making deliveries if necessary. So the thing that comes to my mind there is that showing some of the physical, potential kind of physical nature of that job. Where on somebody's resume do you see some indication that he might be used to physical work?
He's listed labor and all the projects he did,
Mm-hmm.
as well as a team member for the restaurant, operating food preparation equipment, restocking supplies, and maintaining cleanliness of stores.
Yeah. So, yeah. So there's two examples under laborer and also team member from his resume. So that's just an example of how you will pull out your transferable skills from your past experience into the job descriptions that you're looking at and reviewing. So again, I just want to say again to really think of yourselves as career changers, not starting over or starting new. There's kind of a difference between starting over and being a career changer. That you do have lots of transferable skills behind you and being well prepared to represent yourself that way through your job search. It's just really key. It gives you a different standing when you're comparing yourself perhaps to somebody who's new, has some new education behind them, which is something that you're competitive about with them. But then you also potentially have years of work experience behind you that another person might not. All right, let's flip over to page 8. Here is a list of transferable skills. There will probably be others if when you sit with yourself with that hot cup of whatever you drink, sit with yourself for a little bit and think, all right, what transferable skills do I really have to offer? And again, down at the bottom of the page, there are some blank spaces for you to write in, some that you notice. And this sheet also can play in with going to ONET Online and also beginning to look at job descriptions. You might not even be near ready to start looking for a job, but this is a great time to start reading job descriptions for the work that you are interested in, even though it could be 2 or 3 or 4 months down the road for you, because beginning to identify those keywords will help you build your resume, and beginning to look at your transferable skills will help you build your resume as well. It'll help you come up with statements that you want to include in your resume to tell about yourself. So I'm going to ask in our room here if you would offer just at least one transferable skill that you chose from this list. Will you tell one, Kaylin?
Definitely the ability to assemble, build, or construct things.
Okay.
I constructed a ton of boxes at one of my jobs.
Okay.
And once I learned how to, it was pretty quick.
Okay, good. You saw an increase in your productivity
Yes.
over doing that. Good.
Yes.
That's even something that you can talk about in an interview, that you can be shown something new to do, and once you have an opportunity to work on that a little bit, you'll be able to show that your productivity will increase doing that. Steve, what's one that you picked? Computer skills. All right.
Using them to building them to repairing them.
Okay. Good. All right. And I think that, did you add that one yourself? Did you add that one yourself down here at the bottom, or use computer software proficiently?
Yeah.
Okay. Good job. All right. Now we are on to page 9. Now we're going to talk about a concept that's called features and benefits. So I just call it the features and benefits of you. And this is a concept that actually comes from the world of sales. And in the selling process, it's important to understand the features about a product that you're going to sell to your customer. Yesterday, I used the example of a refrigerator. It's great if you went into the basement of Sears and you wanted to buy a new refrigerator and you read the list or the salesperson's telling you all the features, right? But what do the features matter? It's the benefits you're going to get out of them, right? Maybe it has an automatic ice maker, but you don't like ice at all, so you don't care about that benefit. So from a sales perspective, it is important to be able to explain to your customer the benefits about those features. It helps you educate your customer, and ultimately they're going to buy the product that they want because of the benefits they perceive, right? So we want to keep in mind here that just like a salesperson is selling to a customer, you are the salesperson selling to a potential employer, right? So in this situation of features and benefits, the product is who? The product is you. So when we think about transferable skills, then we want to keep in mind that those are the many features that you have to offer a potential employer. And the benefits, basically, is the benefit of employing you, having you come on board with the potential employer, the value that they'll gain because they have hired you. So this is a sheet that you can use as you work through this section number 2 to talk about yourself. This is also a concept, and you could even photocopy this sheet many times. For each job description that you read and that you want to apply for, you can look at the things that they're looking for, that they're requesting in the job description, and you can think of those are features that they're looking for. What is it that I have to offer? And then you can take that information and turn it into a benefits statement. Ask yourself, okay, well, this is a feature of me and they're looking for that. And then you ask yourself, so what? What does it matter that I have that feature, that I can respond to that thing that they're looking for? What is the benefit that I have to offer this potential employer because I have this transferable skill? Okay. All right, let's go to the next page, which again looks really familiar. We're not actually going to camp out there. It just gives you an opportunity to have another set of PAR sheets to use. I'm like kind of behind on my slides here. I want to remind you that last week we talked about that survey done by that was given to 400 employers listing the top soft skills that, number one, that are most often sought for a new employee to have, but are the least seen these days. Remember that? Well, here's that same handy dandy list again. And I just put it in this section again so that as you move through developing your transferable skills, you can think to yourself, you can look through this list and say, all right, if these are important, like across the country, if these are important to employers, which ones do I have? Transferable wise, remember, they're just a part of you. No matter who you work for or what job you do, these are soft skills, transferable skills that you bring with you. And to think about things that you can tell about from previous employment that respond to these skills. Just a little reminder there to use your PAR format. All right, let's turn to the last page in our handout for today. And I'd just like you to be able to have a few minutes to begin to write in on your page some of what you perceive to be your top transferable skills. So you have hard skills, which are the technical things that you do in work. And you'll find a lot of those will be changing for you now that you'll be moving into new work that you want to do. I don't know this. Steve, tell me, do you come from a background of working on computers?
Yeah.
Okay, so you'll have a lot of hard skills that maybe you're enhancing or learning new technology about. So, but you already have a good set of hard skills behind you. So here's a place to just list some of those out as you think about getting ready to interview down the road at some point. And then on the right side here at the top, transferable skills, soft skills. Like Caitlin mentioned, attention to detail. So no matter where she works or what she does, she's always going to have a good ability to do that. So as you look back through this section of information at a couple of these lists that were provided, or things that just popped into your mind as we went through those 19 questions, here's a place to begin to make a list, keep a list. And then on page 4 in this handout was a list of strengths. And you may have come up with some additional strengths that you didn't find on that list. So here's a place on your professional profile to begin to list out, what do you think are the top 3 strengths that you have to offer? The next section that you'll see on your professional profile page is a place to list your computer skills. And I think that one place that you'll definitely find information that you can add to this page will be when you do begin to just start reviewing job descriptions that you find. I encourage you to actually print them, hole punch them, stick them in your notebook, take a highlighter, highlight things that you feel are things that you will have to offer employers when you begin your job search process and you begin interviewing. And as you review those job descriptions, just make note of some of the things that really jump out at you that you want to be able to be ready to give an example of or tell a story about, especially if you get that quick little phone interview. Those sometimes really seem to catch people by surprise because you know you're usually not sitting at home. It's all quiet with nothing to do when it comes. You know, you're in the middle of being busy doing something and they'll ask you, is this an okay time for you to talk? And in our mind, we could be thinking, no, not really. But we say, what do we say? Sure. And so to have had the opportunity to review the job description and make the matches, you know, look at your features and benefits and your transferable skills, et cetera, and have that in your mind thinking, all right, maybe they'll call me this week and I'll be ready. And then professional achievements. Are there certificates that you've received? Are there classes that you have taken that have enhanced your abilities in your job? Are you a part of any organizations related to work that you've done in the past or work that you look forward to doing in the future? If you have things like that from your past work and there's some relationship that you can point toward the work you want to do in the future, this is actually a section that you can include at the bottom of your resume. It's real easy to go online and put in the type of work, what you've been studying here at OSC and the type of work that you look forward to doing, and just put next to that, put professional organizations, type in Sacramento. A lot of organizations now have really good information-filled websites. You can join the organization, and a lot of times they have a monthly meeting. You have an opportunity to go to the meeting, and they oftentimes will have a networking segment of their meeting where you get to spend some time talking to other people that came. So even though our natural inclination might be to sneak off to the restroom at that moment or go fill up our water cup again, when you're ready to talk to people about what you are looking forward to doing in your new work, then that's opportunity to talk to people that are already doing what you're doing. It's a place to do a little informational interviewing while you're at this meeting. And a lot of times these organizations now also have job search assistants, whether they post job openings on their website or they announce them at their meeting. It's great to be able to make those sort of connections if there are things that you can find related to the field of work that you want to go into. So again, most of this is about just having a place to keep these sort of notes about yourself and taking the time to review this kind of information about yourself, because I think I mentioned this last week, a couple of weeks ago. I was helping someone submit an online application and they were using one of the job boards. I think that it was Career Builder, and it keeps track of how many people have submitted an application to the same job. And it said 441 people had submitted an application to the same bookkeeping related job. And so this person was number 442. So where do you get your edge from? I say that you get your edge by doing things that most other job seekers don't do or won't do. And that is really preparing yourself in this way with this type of information to build yourself up to be able to use your words to paint a picture of who you will be as that new employee. All right, we are done for today, except to say I just want to encourage you to spend a little more time going through this if you need to start putting this information together about yourself. Are there any questions out here? Or any questions that we have from the people that have dialed in?
You've been offline the whole time, so you're only talking
What?
to these two people and the broadcast.
Okay.
No question.
I just found out that this broadcast did not pick up for the people that dialed in, but we will have a replay. So I want to just let you know that as you maybe listen to the replay, please feel free to send an email if you have a question or comment about something, and that's how we can handle some questions. And if it's something to talk about after you email, then we'll set up a time to talk. I'll just tell you, I think that you know it, but I'll give you my email address. It is C Zoeller, Z as in zebra, OELLER, C Zoeller at OSCCT.com. I'm really sorry that that's happened. I will send an email right away to let you know, remind you about the replay that will be available in a couple hours. All right, over and out here.
Can I have your mouse?
I want to ask you guys a question. Next week we're going to talk about interviewing. Oh no, I'm sorry. Week 4 we're going to talk about interviewing.